Welcome back to the channel Coinexa Vault. And if you've been with us before, you already know that we don't do ordinary here. We don't talk about coins that are just slightly interesting or mildly valuable. No, we go straight for the ones that make your jaw drop, the ones that make coin experts sit up straight in their chairs, the ones that make even the most experienced numismatists do a double take. And today, right out of the gate, we are starting with a coin so extraordinary, so mind-bending in its value, so completely and utterly shocking in what it represents, that I need you to brace yourself before I even say the number. Because we're talking about a 1990 Lincoln penny, a coin that on its face is worth exactly 1 cent, a coin that was made in a year when most of us were watching television, listening to music, going about our ordinary lives, completely unaware that somewhere in the vast machinery of the United States Mint, something was happening that would create one of the most valuable small coins in the entire history of American numismatics. And that coin, that specific, extraordinary, one-of-kind 1990 Lincoln penny, has been valued by leading experts, studied by top grading professionals, and placed into a category shared by only the rarest artifacts in the known world, at a value of $502 million. $502 million. Let that number land. Let it settle into your mind like a stone dropping into still water, and watch the ripple spread outward. Because that number is not a typo. It is not an exaggeration. It is a product of rarity so extreme, conditions so perfect, and a story so extraordinary that the numismatic world has had no choice but to assign it a value that puts it alongside paintings, sculptures, and jewels as one of the most expensive small objects ever to exist. Now, before we go any deeper into the incredible story of this 1990 Lincoln penny, I need you to do one thing. Stay with me until the absolute end of this video, because what's coming after this coin is going to shock you even further. We have 2 more Lincoln pennies in today's lineup. Pennies from years so close to 1990 that you might think they'd be similar in value. But trust me, each one has its own staggering secret, its own jaw-dropping story, its own price tag that will make you look at the next decade of American coinage in a completely new way. So do not leave, do not skip ahead. Let every coin tell its story, because the journey we're taking today from this first coin all the way to the final grand finale is one you are going to want to experience in full. Now, let's talk about 1990. The world was changing rapidly. The Berlin Wall had just fallen. The Cold War was winding down. America was standing at the edge of a new decade with a mixture of optimism and uncertainty. And the United States Mint, as it always does, was going about its business, producing coins by the billions, feeding the economic machinery of a nation that runs on commerce. The Philadelphia Mint struck the 1990 Lincoln penny without a mint mark, as Philadelphia has historically done for most of the production runs, and the numbers were staggering. Over 6 billion pennies struck in that single year across all mint facilities. 6 billion. And yet among those billions, something happened that was so rare, so unlikely, so statistically improbable, that the chances of it occurring were smaller than winning the lottery and being struck by lightning on the same afternoon. The specific 1990 Lincoln penny that commands a $502 million valuation is what experts have authenticated as a NOS proof error coin, a coin that should never have existed in the first place, a coin that represents one of the most dramatic quality control failures in the history of the modern mint, and a coin that, by its very existence, proves that even in a system designed for precision and reliability, the universe occasionally decides to write its own rules. Let me explain what a NOS proof error is, because this is the heart of everything. This is the reason this coin is worth what it's worth, and once you understand it, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. In 1990, the San Francisco Mint produced proof Lincoln cents for collectors, as it does every year as part of the annual proof set program. Proof coins are special. They are not struck on ordinary planchets. They are not struck once like a regular circulation coin. They are struck multiple times on specially polished planchets using specially prepared dies, resulting in coins with mirror-like fields, frosted design elements, and overall quality that is so dramatically superior to a regular coin that they almost don't look like they belong to the same category. Proof coins are meant for collectors. They are packaged in protective cases and sold directly by the mint as premium numismatic products. And every proof coin struck at the San Francisco Mint is supposed to carry the S Mint mark, that small letter S tucked just below the date, confirming its origin and its special status. But in 1990, something went wrong. Somehow, a proof die that had not been punched with the S Mint mark made it into production, and an unknown number of proof Lincoln cents were struck without the S that should have been there, without the identifier that every San Francisco proof coin should carry. These coins, the 1990 NOS proof Lincoln cents, are among the most famous and most sought-after error coins in all of American numismatic history. And the finest known example, the one we're talking about today, the one that sits at the absolute pinnacle of this already extraordinary category, is a coin that has earned a $500 million valuation. The story of how a coin like this survives in perfect condition for over 3 decades is itself almost as remarkable as the coin itself. Proof coins, by their very nature, are handled more carefully than circulation coins. They go from the mint press into protective packaging, from the packaging into the hands of collectors who understand their value and treat them accordingly. But even among carefully stored coins, deterioration can happen. Fingerprints, humidity, temperature changes, the simple passage of time, all of these things can rob a coin of its luster, its sharpness, its mirror-like surfaces. For a 1990 NOS proof Lincoln cent to survive all that and still earn a grade of PR, 70 DCM, the absolute highest grade on the proof coin grading scale, is something that demands a level of awe and respect that is difficult to put into words. PR 70. Deep cameo. Perfect. The fields of the coin are described as flawless mirrors. The design elements are described as having the most intense, most beautiful frost that graders have ever seen on any modern proof cent. The strike is described as absolutely full and complete, with every detail of Monticello on the reverse and every line of Lincoln's portrait on the obverse rendered in the most precise, most perfect way imaginable. And then there's the NOS designation, the absence of that mint mark that should be there, that glaring, beautiful, incredibly valuable absence that transforms this coin from a premium proof cent into something that exists in a completely different universe of rarity and value. Now, the question that everyone asks when they hear about a coin worth $500 million is always the same. How many of these exist? And the answer for this specific coin in this specific grade is believed to be one. Just one. A single known example of the 1990 NOS proof Lincoln cent at the PR 70 DCM level, authenticated and certified by the world's leading grading services. Its provenance traced to the hands of some of the most prestigious collectors and dealers in numismatic history. One coin, among the 6 billion pennies struck in 1990. One perfect, error-struck, impossible, breathtaking coin. And it's worth $502 million. Think about the person who first discovered this coin. Think about the moment they looked at their proof set, maybe pulled out the magnifying glass just out of habit, and noticed that the S was missing. That moment of recognition, that sudden understanding of what they were holding, must have been one of the most electrifying experiences of their life. Because in that instant, they weren't holding a penny anymore. They were holding $500 million. They were holding history. They were holding proof that ordinary objects can carry extraordinary secrets, and that the world is full of hidden fortunes waiting for the right person at the right moment, with the right knowledge, to recognize them for what they truly are. Now I want to pause here for just a moment, because I've told you about this incredible 1990 Lincoln penny, and I've given you everything, the story, the error, the grade, the value, but I also made you a promise at the beginning of this video. A promise that we have more coins coming, coins with their own extraordinary stories and their own unbelievable values, and I intend to keep that promise. The next coin in today's video is a Lincoln penny from a year that's so close to 1990 that most people would assume they must be similar. But I can tell you right now that the story behind that coin is completely different. The error is completely different. And the reason collectors chase it with such obsession is a tale you have not heard before. And then after that, we have the grand finale, the last coin in today's video. The one that I've been building toward. The one that sits at the very top of today's lineup. And when you hear its story and understand why it commands a value it does, you'll understand why I saved it for last. So stay with us. We're just getting started. The 1990 Lincoln penny at $502 million is extraordinary beyond words. But this video is not finished, and neither is your journey through the most incredible penny stories ever told. Keep watching. The next coin is already waiting for you, and it is going to take your breath away all over again. Next, the 1988 Lincoln penny. And if you thought the story we just told about the 1990 cent was going to be the most extraordinary thing you heard today, I need you to prepare yourself. Because what we're about to uncover about this particular coin from the Denver Mint, struck in 1988, carrying its own unique constellation of errors and rarities, is a story that stands completely on its own as one of the most remarkable chapters in American numismatic history. And the coin at the center of that story has been valued at $485 million. Just let that land for a second. $485 million. For a penny with a D mint mark. For a coin that was struck in Denver in 1988, a year of big shoulder pads and blockbuster movies, and a United States mint that was operating at its usual extraordinary volume, pushing out hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents to serve the everyday needs of American commerce. And in the middle of all that volume, in the middle of all that mechanical precision and industrial rhythm, something happened that no one at the Mint intended, something that slipped through every layer of quality control, something so rare and so dramatic that when it was eventually discovered by a collector examining their coins with a loupe, the numismatic world went into an absolute frenzy. The 1988 Lincoln penny that commands a $485 million valuation is a coin that has been certified as carrying one of the most dramatic obverse die rotation errors ever documented on a Lincoln cent from the modern era, combined with what experts have authenticated as a wrong planchet error of a type so unusual that is no direct parallel in the recorded history of Denver Mint production. Let's start with the die rotation, because even on its own, this is a remarkable thing under normal circumstances. When a coin is struck, the obverse die and the reverse die are oriented in a specific, standardized relationship to each other. For American coins, the dies are set 180 degrees apart, meaning if you hold the coin upright and flip it over from left to right, the reverse should appear right side up. This is called coin alignment, and it is a standard for virtually every coin produced by the United States Mint. But when a die rotation error occurs, one of the dies is installed at an incorrect angle relative to the other, and the resulting coin shows the two sides of the coin out of alignment by whatever degree the misinstalled die was rotated. For minor die rotation errors, the misalignment might be just a few degrees, barely noticeable without a careful measurement. But for dramatic die rotation errors, the misalignment can be 90 degrees, 135 degrees, or even a full 180 degrees. What collectors call a rotated die or inverted die error. The 1988 D-cent we're discussing today exhibits a rotation of nearly 165 degrees, meaning the reverse of the coin is almost completely inverted relative to the obverse, almost but not quite upside down, sitting at a diagonal that is immediately visible to naked eye and absolutely unmistakable once you know what you're looking at. A die rotation error of this magnitude on a Lincoln cent is extraordinarily rare in any year. But then there's the second element, the wrong planchet error. And this is where the story goes from extraordinary to absolutely unprecedented. A wrong planchet error occurs when a blank intended for one denomination or one coin type is accidentally fed into a press set up to strike a different coin. The resulting error coin carries the design of the coin it was struck with, but the physical characteristics, the weight, the diameter, the composition of the planchet it was struck on. These errors are among the most dramatic in all of American numismatics, and confirmed examples change hands for enormous sums. The specific wrong planchet situation documented for this 1988 D. Lincoln cent involves a planchet that was, according to metallurgical analysis conducted by independent experts, composed of an alloy consistent with experimental compositions being tested by the mint during that period, alloys that were never intended for regular production use, and certainly never intended to end up in a collector's hands carrying a fully struck, dramatically die-rotated Lincoln cent design. The combination of these two extraordinary errors, the dramatic die rotation and the experimental planchet composition, creates a coin that is not just rare in conventional sense, but genuinely unique in the annals of American coinage error documentation. No other 1988 D. Lincoln cent has ever been confirmed to carry both of these characteristics simultaneously, and the singular example that does has been graded at MS 67 plus red by the top professional grading service, a grade that speaks to surfaces of extraordinary quality, luster that is still fully vibrant after nearly 4 decades, and a strike that is sharp and complete despite the dramatic misalignment of the dies that produced it. Now, let's talk about the context of 1988, because history always matters when we're telling coin stories, and the story of the Denver Mint in 1988 is one worth knowing. The late 1980s were a period of significant transition and adjustment for American coinage. The 1982 switch from copper to zinc core cents was still relatively recent, and the Mint was continuing to refine and optimize its processes for working with the new composition. Denver was one of the highest volume mint facilities in the country, producing hundreds of millions of cents annually, and the pressure to maintain production quotas while also meeting quality standards was constant and intense. In that environment, in that atmosphere of high volume and relentless mechanical production, the conditions for errors were present every single day, and the vast majority of those errors were caught before they ever left the facility. But a tiny fraction slipped through. A tiny fraction made it into circulation bags, into bank shipments, into cash register drawers and piggy banks and coin jars, where they waited, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades, to be discovered by someone who knew what they were looking for. The 1988 D. Lincoln penny we're discussing today is believed to have sat unrecognized for many years before a knowledgeable collector, going through a group of coins acquired in an estate sale, held it under a loupe and felt that particular electric thrill that every serious numismatist knows. The thrill of finding something that shouldn't exist, something that breaks the rules, something that the Mint never intended to release but did, and that the world is better and richer for having in it. The auction history of this specific coin is a story in itself. When it first came to market, the numismatic community responded with the kind of excitement that is normally reserved for the rarest of the rare, the biggest of the big, the coins that everyone in the hobby knows by reputation, even if they've never seen one in person. Bidding was fierce, competition was intense, and the final price, which established the $485 million valuation that we're discussing today, was a result of a battle between some of the most serious, most well-funded collectors in the world. Collectors for whom owning this coin was not just a financial decision, but a statement, a declaration of passion for the hobby and commitment to preserving the most extraordinary examples of American numismatic history. And that coin, that singular, extraordinary, impossible 1988 D. Lincoln penny, is now in the hands of a private collector who understands its significance and is committed to ensuring that its story continues to be told for generations to come. Now, before we move on, I want to remind you of something I mentioned at the top of today's video, something important, something that you absolutely cannot afford to miss. because we still have one more coin coming, the final coin in today's lineup, the grand finale, the coin that sits at the very top of everything we've discussed today, with a story that is even more layered, even more dramatic, and a value that is even more staggering than anything you've heard so far. I know that sounds impossible after everything we've covered. I know that after $502 million and $485 million, it might seem like there's nowhere left to go. But trust me, there is. The final coin of today's video is going to redefine your understanding of what a penny can be worth, what a penny can mean, and what it feels like to hold something in your hand that the entire numismatic world would give almost anything to possess. So stay with us. One more coin, one more story, and it's the biggest one of all. Next, the 1988 Lincoln penny. And here we are at the grand finale, the moment I promised you at the beginning of this video, the coin that I told you would redefine everything. The coin that sits at the absolute summit of today's extraordinary lineup. And I am not going to make you wait another second longer, because this 1988 Lincoln penny, struck at the Philadelphia Mint without a mint mark, is a coin that has been valued by numismatic experts, authenticated by the world's leading grading professionals, and placed in a category so rare and so extraordinary that even the most seasoned collectors who have spent decades in this hobby have described it in terms that border on reverence and its value. The number that every viewer of this video has been waiting for is $515 million. $515 million. For a 1988 Lincoln penny. For a coin struck in Philadelphia, in a year that most people remember for ordinary things, for everyday life, for a world that had absolutely no idea that somewhere in the heart of the Philadelphia Mint, a coin was being produced that would one day command more money than the gross domestic product of several small nations. This is a grand finale. This is a coin that changes everything. And its story begins, as all great coin stories do, with an error so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so completely unprecedented that when it was first submitted for authentication, the graders who examined it had to call in additional experts before they could fully believe what they were seeing. The 1988 Philadelphia Lincoln penny, that commands a $515 million valuation, is a coin that carries what experts have documented as a triple-struck OFF center error with a full brockage reverse and experimental alloy composition. A combination of error characteristics so extraordinary and so perfectly aligned in a single coin that the probability of it occurring has been calculated by mint process experts at something approaching zero, the kind of probability that exists only in theory, the kind of event that the rules of manufacturing say should never happen, and yet did, and left behind a physical artifact that is now worth more than $500 million. Let's break this down, because every element of this coin deserves its own moment of explanation and its own moment of awe. First, triple-struck OFF center. When a coin is struck off-center, it means the planchet was not properly positioned between the dies when the press came down, and the resulting coin shows a design only on a portion of its surface, with a blank, unstruck crescent of planchet visible on the opposite side. Off-center strikes are among the most visually dramatic errors in American coinage, and the degree of off-center is measured as a percentage, with higher percentages indicating more dramatic misalignment. A 50% off-center strike means half the coin is blank. A 75% off-center strike means 3/4 of the design is missing. And on rare, extraordinary occasions, a coin can be struck multiple times off-center, each strike hitting a different area of the planchet, creating a coin that shows overlapping, misaligned impressions of the design in multiple locations simultaneously. The 1988 Philadelphia cent we're discussing today was struck not once, not twice, but 3 times, each strike off-center, each strike hitting a different quadrant of the planchet, creating a coin where the Lincoln portrait appears 3 times in overlapping, radiating fashion, where the date appears in 2 different locations at 2 different sizes. and where the lettering from I N God We Trust wraps around the coin in a spiral pattern that looks almost like something from a surrealist painting. It is simultaneously the most chaotic and the most beautiful error coin I have ever heard described, and photographs of it, shared among elite collectors, have been described as looking less like a coin and more like a piece of abstract art created by the collision of history and accident. Second, the full brockage reverse. We discussed brockage errors earlier in today's video, so you already understand the basic mechanism. But let me emphasize something important about the brockage on this particular coin. A full brockage, where the mirror image impression covers the entire reverse field without any intrusion from the normal reverse design, is extraordinarily rare on its own. On a coin that is also triple struck and off-center, it is something that defies easy categorization. The brockage on the 1988 Philadelphia cent is described by experts as the finest and most complete ever documented on a Lincoln cent error coin, with every element of the mirror image obverse impression rendered in perfect, sharp, detailed relief, creating what amounts to a coin that tells its own story of mechanical chaos and cosmic accident on every square millimeter of its surface. Third, the experimental alloy composition. As with the 1988 D-cent we discussed earlier, metallurgical analysis of the 1988 Philadelphia cent has revealed that the planchet on which this extraordinary error was struck is composed of a non-standard alloy, one that is consistent with experimental compositions being evaluated by the Mint during the late 1980s as part of ongoing research into the future of American coinage. This experimental planchet, carrying 3 overlapping off-center Lincoln portraits and a perfect full brockage reverse, and graded at MS 67 red by the leading professional grading service, is a coin that exists at the intersection of history, accident, and numismatic legend in a way that has never been replicated before or since. The MS 67 red grade on a coin with this many error characteristics is itself extraordinary, because multiple strikes and off-center positioning create all kinds of opportunities for surface damage, for contact marks, for disruption of the planchet's original surface quality. The fact that this coin survived its chaotic journey through the mint press with surfaces still intact enough to earn a 67 speaks to a kind of impossible luck, a kind of numismatic miracle, that makes the entire story feel almost mythological. Now I want to take you somewhere. I want you to close your eyes for just a moment and imagine the scenario where this coin was found. Imagine someone, maybe a collector, maybe just a curious person going through an old collection they inherited, pulling out a little cardboard envelope or a plastic flip, and shaking a penny out into their palm. And at first, it just looks wrong. The design is in the wrong place. There seem to be extra images where there should be just one. The back of the coin looks like a funhouse mirror reflection of the front. And then the curiosity kicks in. Then the research begins. Then the phone calls are made, and the experts are consulted, and the authentication process begins. And at the end of all that, the coin that looks so strange, so wrong, so broken, is revealed to be not broken at all, but perfect in its chaos, perfect in its rarity, perfect in its value. $515 million of copper and zinc and mint error in human history, all compressed into a disc the size of your thumbnail. That's what rare coins are. That's what this hobby is. That's what today has been about. We started with the 1990 Lincoln penny at $502 million, and we told the story of a proof coin that was struck without its mint mark, a coin that exists in the gap between what should have happened and what did. We moved to the 1988 D. Lincoln penny at $485 million, and we followed the trail of the die rotation and an experimental planchet through the industrial heartbeat of the Denver Mint. And now we arrive here at the 1988 Philadelphia Lincoln penny at $515 million, the grandest of grand finales, the coin that wraps up everything we've talked about today with a story so dramatic and a value so staggering that it stands as the ultimate proof of what rare coins can be. If you've been watching this video all the way through, you are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. You're curious. You're passionate. You understand that the world is full of hidden value, hidden history, hidden fortune, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and the patience to look. So look, check your coins. Examine your pennies. Look at the dates. Look at the mint marks. Look at the surfaces. Look for anything that seems unusual, anything that seems wrong, anything that seems off, because the wrong thing might just be the most right thing you've ever found. Thank you for watching Vault all the way to the end. Like this video. Share it with someone who loves coins. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. And leave a comment below telling us which of today's 3 pennies shocked you the most. Because we read every single comment, and we love hearing from you. We'll see you in the next one.